Hello and welcome to the Justice Factor, coming to you live from our studios in Hyde Park, Johannesburg. Economic freedom fighters leader Julius Malema says that South Africans are to blame for the poor conditions under which they live because, he says, they keep on voting for the same party. Is he the man to replace President Jacob Zuma? Is the EFF the party to take over from the ANC? My special guest today is EFF leader Julius Malema. After that interview, we'll give you, as usual, our winner and loser of the week. But first, EFF leader Julius Malema. Julius Malema, welcome to the show. Always a pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much.
I have to say, every time one wants to have a political discussion with you, you know, what's just sits in front of me is your history. It's the fact that, you know, I look at the ANC Youth League and I think Julius Malema is up on corruption charges, as being followed up by SARS. Andile Lungisa, your former deputy, your former treasurer, Malema, all of you seem to have trouble with the law. How can I trust you that you will be the leader that you say you will be when you get into government?
Look, being in trouble with the law is things that happen when you grow up. At times you commit mistakes and learn from those mistakes. And I think that some of these allegations against some of us, they will be cleared sooner than later because they can't stick. Actually, in my case, there was a case that was separated from my case. People were removed from it and were tried separately. The accused did not even lead evidence. The state led a very weak evidence, and the legal representative said, you can close the case. We don't want to say anything because we don't know which case to answer. So very soon, I think the corruption charges against me will be history. The SARS matter is a matter that me and you have canvassed for quite some time now. And it's very clear that I'm being pursued politically. SARS is being manipulated to settle political scores. I mean, that was confirmed by the spokesperson of SARS after the sequestration judgment was made last week. Instead of saying the creditors will make their money if Malema is sequestrated, he says this is the end of political career of Julius Malema. What does SARS have to do with political careers of individuals?
Well, I mean, if you're saying you're being followed up by SARS for political reasons, one would turn around and say, well, Malema, your former Treasurer General in the Youth League, is being followed up by the Hawks, and he sits on the NEC of the ANC next to President Jacob Zuma, who you've alleged may be behind these manipulations.
I wouldn't speak for Malema. I don't think he will, be convinced that I'm the right person to speak for him.
Andile Lungisa, same thing.
Both of them, they're ANC chaps, and I think the ANC is better placed to articulate why they've got such leaders.
But Julius, you, the three of you were the top three leaders of the ANC Youth League.
Yes.
A body that owes so much money to so many people that it's being followed up in court. It doesn't exist. In fact, the structure that calls itself the ANC Youth League now is a joke. It's not
Justice, the reality is that the so-called structure of the Youth League is scared to tell the truth. The truth is that the Youth League doesn't pay for its conferences. The 2008 conference was organized by Malala, who's number 3 on the ANC list, and Sihle Zikalala in Mangaung, where we got elected. The reports which were presented to the ANC till to date by the leadership of the ANC was that all the debts of that conference have been settled. If you go to any court papers, you will never hear Julius Malema's name being mentioned as part of the people who made that arrangement of a debt in Mangaung. The conference I organized after Mangaung was the second leg in Nazareth. It's not owing anybody. I organized a conference in Midrand, one of the biggest conferences, by the way, in the history of Congress movement. It's not in the papers, it's not in court, it's properly paid. It elected leadership which Zuma expelled later on because that leadership was not favoring him. So under my leadership, there's no youth league that is owing anything to anybody. There's no Julius Malema's name in court which says he was part of the deal which got the youth league into trouble. Malala must be asked questions. Sihle Zikalala must be asked questions. Those are the leaders of the youth league who got into that agreement in Mangaung. And the ANC signed such a deal because the ANC pays for the Youth League conferences.
So the ANC is responsible for the
ANC is responsible for the liquidation of the ANC Youth League, legally and politically, by the way. They have succeeded politically to liquidate it, now is facing a legal liquidation.
Okay, let me say I'm a young person out in Bulobedu in Zanin, near Limpopo, in Limpopo, and I look at you and I say, wow, this is a man who says he follows the works of Thomas Sankara and so forth, and yet you owe SARS 4 million rand by your account or 16 million rand by the account. The key issue there is that, well, this person has lived a fantastic life under the ANC and now is complaining. How do I trust you as that young person that this is a credible leader who doesn't speak with a forked tongue?
A young person from Bulobedu, Julius Malema doesn't owe SARS 16 million. That tax bill is for the trust, which is taxable on Julius Malema's hand.
But it's the Ranatanang trust, which is your trust.
No, trust has got its own tax number. Julius Malema has got his own tax number. Julius Malema as a person doesn't owe SARS. That's what is in dispute. The trust accumulated the debt, and therefore SARS says it's taxable on Julius Malema's hand. So young men from Limpopo, this is the man you can trust. They have taken responsibilities of the trust to an individual.
Linked to you in any way?
I am. Ratanan Trust is my family trust.
Okay.
Yes, and I'm not the trust. A trust has got a legal life of its own. Yes, I'm a trustee.
So you're responsible.
I've taken that responsibility, but it will be incorrect to say a tax bill of a trust it belongs to an individual. Let me tell you, I got a tax assessment now in January of 10,000 rand as Julius Malema, and I've paid it to SARS. So the dispute is a debt of a trust, which is what is in dispute here. And because I'm a trustee, of course,
your
I will
organization
stand and speak on behalf of the
Okay,
trust.
let's put that aside, because your organization says, some supporters of yours are saying they're going to set up a trust in which I should put in some money, other people should put in some money so that we can help you out. Now, does that affects you directly? And if you get a final sequestration, you will be barred from going to Parliament. Am I correct?
I don't know that. I don't know. I only learned the concept sequestration now. I don't know what are its implications. The well-qualified people, the lawyers, assist with that matter. They are busy engaging with the relevant authorities to settle the sequestration politics. The EFF never said it's going to open a trust. The EFF was approached by individuals who are saying, we want to contribute. As I was walking into this studio, a cameraman said to me, I'm looking for the account to donate at 32 rand. It's not an EFF person. It's an individual who says, we can see what SARS is doing to you and we want to contribute.
Shouldn't the cameraman be asking you, what's a leader of your stature doing not paying their taxes from 2016?
The cameraman can see the lies behind, that crooks are chasing our leader and we shall defend our leader. That's what the people are saying. We'll stand by you. We can see what they are doing to you, and we're not going to retreat. I'm poor. I'm a cameraman here at eNCA. I'm ready to contribute 32 rand.
But your own organization said, and I think it was Ms. Munisami who said, 4 million, Magdalene Munisami who said, actually that is 4 million rand, not 16 million rand. I mean, you'd have to ask the cameraman here, why exactly, well, how can you say you're poor when you owe money 4 million rand? If it's 25% of your earnings, you must have earned 16 million rand in that period.
It's not Julius Malema is the trust, which is owing 4 million. Julius Malema is a trustee.
Yes.
And as an analyst, I thought you'll capture that one very fast and differentiate the two.
I'm trying to differentiate the two, but clearly as a trustee and the sole trustee, then you'd have got the money.
I accept that responsibility as a trustee, not as an individual. That's why the trust is fighting.
So as a trustee, why didn't you get the trust to pay its taxes over 4 years, 6
The
years?
people who made contribution to the trust justice have paid the donations tax. And we've even filed to SARS that a person who donates pays a donations tax. You can't expect the one who received the donation to pay as long as the donor paid. So we can't pay on the same amount twice. There's a legal dispute on this matter. And we are not going to accept to be bullied by state institutions. We've got rights, we're protected by the Constitution, and we're using all the options available to contest that.
I'm going to stop you there, Julius Malema. We have to pay the bills here at ETV. So we're going to go on now with the politics of your party after the break. Welcome back to the Justice Factor as we continue our conversation with EFF leader Julius Malema. Julius Malema, let's talk some about the controversies that have dogged your movement over the past few weeks as campaigning began in its earnestness. Are you calling for an Arab Spring in South Africa when you say we want to see more protests in South Africa?
Our people must begin to speak for themselves. Leadership has abandoned them, and therefore they are their own liberators. They have been to every channel available to them, and there hasn't been any result. So in a situation where 20 years into democracy, they still find themselves in such conditions, they have to do something. And we shouldn't be threatened by protest justice. It's protected by the Constitution. It is their democratic right. They must do it. They must do it in a dignified manner. They shouldn't burn buildings. They shouldn't intimidate people. But no one should stop them from protesting.
Well, there's a picture doing the rounds on Twitter and in newspapers where your party is seen delivering tires to people in Hebron, in Pretoria. That's direct provocation and fueling these protests.
Sometimes pictures lie, my brother. Don't just see a picture and conclude. The police actually opened a case against the person who was driving the buggy.
But the leader of the EFF in Hebron, Mr. Muhulatsi, said, yes, it's our truck. He was one of the people on the truck. And he says, we took the tires from one section of the township and delivered to people on the other side of the township.
Let me give you the facts. I mean, we're here to share information with our people. The guy was charged by police, accused of carrying tires and distributing them in the township, only to realize that actually they were removing tires as they were entering the township. And I'm telling you now, the charges have been dropped. You want me to believe that, on the day of the protest, an EFF car arrives and says, we're going to clean up this place, when you're calling for people to protest? Then you don't believe police. Then you don't believe the law enforcement. The law enforcement have dropped charges against him because evidence was very clear that the man was not inciting violence. I'm not talking hearsay
but
here.
but
I'm talking about people who operate under oath.
I'm talking about the same EFF
And the person
leader.
you're quoting doesn't operate under oath. I'm telling you about it.
But he's a member of the EFF. When he says, I'm one of the people in this picture, and I took the tires where they were burning and no cars were being allowed through to take them to another section of Hebron.
My brother, the owner of the car is Stan. He's in the region of EFF. He was charged with inciting violence. And when he presented the evidence before a prosecuting authority, they dropped charges because there was no such evidence.
But charges are not all dropped. It might be that there's no evidence, but from his own mouth.
So why do you want to accuse people justice if there's no evidence? Let's leave that one. There's no evidence. The law enforcement will not find evidence. There's a clear confession
to the City Press newspaper in which he said, I carried, and there's a picture, and that's him saying, I carried this stuff from one part of the
guy who was driving the buggy. His name is Stan, charged and charges dropped because there's no evidence. If there's no evidence, Justice, you move to the next question.
Let's move to the next question.
Let's not stick to rumors.
There is a poster shown of your members holding a big red poster with the words, the honeymoon is over for whites in South Africa. Do you agree with this sort of sentiment?
We distanced ourselves immediately after Marikana. It's an old poster, banner. Maybe it reached justice factor very late.
No, it
which
didn't.
Means your researchers are very late.
You haven't been on the show for a long time. You haven't been on the show for a long time.
We've distanced ourselves from that. This is a home of white people. And look at how many are beginning to join the EFF and feeling so comfortable with the EFF because they appreciate that we need to resolve the past. So let's not go to an October story. There should be something new. Let's deal with that.
On the BBC in 2012, you told Komla Dumor that we are going, you were in London at the time, you said we are going back to the ANC in December when Jacob Zuma is kicked out of the ANC. He wasn't kicked out, he was retained by a 74% majority. And so you stayed out of the ANC. Is it possible for the EFF and for yourself to go into alliance with the ANC after the election?
Let's deal with that when we arrive at that point. I don't think that the EFF is ready to go into any alliance with anybody. We are preparing to take over government. Unlike Holomisa, we are not contesting to be an opposition. We call ourselves a government in waiting. So we don't think about such things. We are now preparing which one can be a DG, which one can hand intelligence, such stuff, not alliances, because our people have shown confidence in the EFF. And we think that we'll take over this government. Would you be
prepared to sit down with ANC leaders if President Zuma was not part of that team?
The ANC has sold out as completely as a body, and not only President Zuma. And therefore, we have introduced an alternative. And this alternative is an alternative to the ANC, which has failed poor masses of our people. So we are not prepared to go back to the ANC, especially myself, as an individual. I've ceased to be Julius Malema. I'm an EFF. I'm a working EFF. In everything else I do, I represent EFF.
Just on that point, 5 years ago you were saying you're prepared to kill for President Zuma. So what went wrong? At which point did this enmity and this, which point did you move apart?
Well, look, the marriage didn't work and we went separate ways. Even when we were still in the ANC, fortunately, some of the things that we are raising ourselves, we raised them when we were in the ANC and said, we are moving away from our people and we seem to be obsessed with the benefits of political elite. And we have replaced the weight people with investors. And we think that we must go back to the basics and address the concerns of our people. And the ANC became uncomfortable with us and we were shown the door. As disciplined members of the ANC at the time, we apologized, we begged, and you reach a point where you say, look, I've tried everything, now I move on with my life. I've done that, I'm not looking back. Once beaten, twice shy.
Helen Zille says that she believes that the ANC is going to get 60% of the vote in this election. How do you think your party will perform in this election?
I don't listen to Helen Zille. Who's Helen Zille to tell me what is going to happen in the election? She has got no capacity.
Tell me what your capacity is.
My capacity is government in waiting. I will acquire the necessary percentage for me to be government. 60%? Absolutely, and more than that. So any percentage, remember that it's not only 51% which gives you the power to be government. You can get less than that and no one get an absolute majority. We go into a coalition and the EFF becomes government. No, there are many parties in South Africa. I mean, we'll deal with those issues after the elections. For now, let's consolidate our base, and we need to know what type of mandate are we getting from our people. So Helen Zille is a complete failure. I mean, why is she contesting elections? Why are people following a person who says, I've lost even before I arrived there? The ANC will get 60%.
Perhaps she's being, I mean, let's take the Ipsos Machina poll. It doesn't give you a win. It gives the ANC 53% majority. So, you know, I mean, we could sit here and say, yeah, the EFF is going to win, but the numbers don't show that.
Though those researchers don't even know a place called Zingi. They don't know Relela. They don't know Soul City. They research from these urban people who are accessible. I'm telling you of a rural mass which is ready to change its vote. So research can be done here in the suburbs and misled. How can you expect people of Houghton who are comfortable to say we want change when they've benefited
I
from
wouldn't
the system?
agree that all these researchers are sitting there polling people in Sandton or Hyde Park only. But let's move on. You're launching your manifesto this weekend. What is it going to say to the people of South Africa? That's
a victorious manifesto. It's a product of consultation with taxi drivers, petrol attendants, waiters and waitresses, farm workers.
You've got 1 minute. Workers, what is it going to say?
And it will express the interest of those people. We are not launching manifesto here in your show, and therefore we can't tell you the contents of the manifesto.
Are you going to call for nationalization of the mines?
That's non-negotiable. We are nationalizing the mines, and the profits made out of the mines are going to be shared with the communities where mining is happening, are going to be shared with the workers through Workers' Trust, and then the remaining will go into the state coffers to finance the social program of the state.
Social grants, are you going to give out more of those?
Which one?
Social grants.
We need more social grants as an immediate intervention, but the social grants must be linked with a program of creating jobs, particularly for those mothers who are receiving a social grant. So it must not be social grants permanently, as a temporary intervention linked with a program of job creation.
Julius Malema, thanks so much for your time, and good luck on the election train.
Thank you. Thank you.
Know more about your world.
eNCA.com